Hello, hello, hello. Hi there. Welcome back to the Dream Business event. And today is going to be a very special class, very special talk about what it means to activate your dream codes. So, there are so many people in the industry that talk about codes. And I just want to dive in a little bit about what does it mean? What does that mean? Like, what does a code mean? Wealth codes, magic codes, prosperity codes, power codes, all of this kind of loose terminology. And I want to dive into what it means to activate a code inside of yourself and also discuss this from a couple different angles. So, I'm Tia Marie. If you don't know me, I help people to create businesses from magic and ground them in systems and strategy that creates a source and a center of inner alignment. So, my work really activates or walks the path between the seen and the unseen, the essence or the sensation, and what you choose to create with it, the magic and the mystery, and the real life tangible results. The soul and the human walking together, creating here. And when I started my business, and I shared this over the past couple days as I've been telling my story around what it was like for me to step from a career pivot or to move from a very linear, I would say, one-dimensional relationship with myself into a multi-dimensional awareness of self and the commitment that it required, was when not only it was so difficult and sort of torturous for me to keep living the way that I was living, but the moment that I made the choice to believe in magic, and I did it for fun. And I want to talk about how magic has actually a really practical application in your life, and how art and vision, genius, inspiration, creativity can seed so much in what it is that you're creating. And so back in the beginning of my step forward, I envisioned a lot. I saw a lot of symbology. In fact, one of the first things that I saw, which sparked my entire career, was a code, a symbol. So there was this night that I was laying in bed, and I remember this moment, I'll never forget it. And I was in between like sleep and awake, and I saw a symbol kind of draw itself in my vision with my eyes closed, kind of like in that space right between my third eye and, like, whatever I'm perceiving in the dark. Right? In the dark of my potential, in the dark of my creativity, eyes closed, seeing more. And in that dark space, which is one of my favorite spaces to be, which really is, in my experience, the womb of creation in the heart, I saw a symbol. And I didn't know what it meant, but it was just so vivid that I hopped out of bed and I drew the symbols out. So there were a series of them that came to me, but one in particular. And I drew them on a piece of paper, and I sat down and thought to myself, well, I don't know what this is, but it gave me such a felt sensation in my body that I knew that it was important. And so, it woke me from my sleep. And what I did with that work was actually begin to receive the mentorship of a guide that helped me to understand not only how to translate symbols into active states of expansion, okay? This part is really, really important. So when we're talking about dreams, when we're talking about like correspondences, when we're talking about like seeing something and then making it mean something, which we do via association and we do a lot of in spiritual searching, we're always looking to interpret dreams, right? Like, what does it mean? I had this vision. I have this knowing. I see more. What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? And there's two things that I think are really potent when it comes to answering that question. The first is it means whatever you make it mean. It means whatever you put attention, focus, and effort into. So in that sense, it can mean everything or it can mean nothing, depending on how sacred that you hold it, the quality of meaning that you give it in your life, whether you continue to hold it front and center, kind of like lay it on the altar of life and let it be a part of you. So all symbols mean whatever you make them mean. But then there's also the way that we can encode symbols with intention in our daily lives. And so the interpretation piece is where it starts to get a little murky. And so these symbols that I saw, I realized how over the years, and I've shared this story many times, I could have made them mean a lot of things. In fact, in the beginning, I thought they meant things that they didn't end up meaning for me. And one of the main symbols, and I'm going to share this inside of the group today, is what I would call a dream code. So I saw this code present itself to me, and it traveled all the way across time and space, through the galaxy, through the sparkly, through the cosmos, through the magic, through the potential, through the swirling star systems, and it kind of hit me right in the middle of the eye. And I saw it, and I grabbed it, and I wrote it down. And I used that symbol as a way to know my dream business avatar for years, because I found so much space in the scrying or in the sitting with or in the ways that I allowed that code to open me multidimensionally, to think about it, to ponder it, to contemplate it, to move it through my body, to breathe with it, to let it inspire my art. So it became this experiential activation portal that behaves very much like a living entity. The same way that words are alive, in the same way that anything that we engage with and we allow to be a full part of our experience can transform and alchemize so much. And so the thing about activating a dream code in your business, the starting point, the catalyst, the center of that dream needs to have not only a spark and a seed in your life, but it gets to also allow you the opportunity to give it reverence and meaning. And so I just want to talk about dream logic a little bit. So what is dream logic? Dream logic is what happens when we understand how to create from sensation. Okay? So a dream logic is not linear, right? So when we are engaged with dream logic, we're connecting by resonance. We're connecting with resonance. We're not connecting through like a step-by-step cause and effect linear journey. Do this and then this will happen and then this will happen and this will happen. And this is often the case when we're trying to tap into manifestation, when we're setting intentions, when we're creating vision boards, when we're, dancing to release energy, when we're meditating, when we are perhaps toning, chanting, engaging in healing vibrations and sounds and rituals, working with candles, working with sexual energy, all of these things, right? Because what we're doing when we're engaging in all of that multidimensional or experiential layers of self is we're addressing, the mental realm, we're addressing the emotional realm, we're addressing the felt, the physical realm. We're moving through all of those parts and parcels of ourselves in order to like land a concept at a whole new level. So a learning with a code or learning with a dream code, it needs to have more significance than just an archetype or a story that you tell yourself, or perhaps a symbol that you've made significant in your life. It gets to have that cognitive recognition, that emotional resonance, the activation of your inner identity. And then it has to move into behavioral embodiment in order for it to make itself known to you, in order for it to actually have the impact that you are attempting to catalyze and activate when you're working with a code. So learning with codes is actually, I feel, a new paradigm is the way that you create new paradigms inside of yourself. Okay? So this is how tarot works. This is how worship works. This is how ritual works. This is how living life as a ritual works. You can see examples of this throughout the entire history of humanity in the most beautiful, profound ways, and also in many ways that are very detrimental, damaging, and harmful to our humanity. Think about Japanese culture. Think about samurai culture, right? They lived by a code. Not only did they have an inner code that informed their courage, what it meant to be a warrior, like the way that they lived and breathed and moved through every single step of their day. They had clothes that were associated, which showed you, right? There was symbolism, there was symbology, there was adornment, there was an identity that was so fully immersed in the definition of the archetype or of the code that it crafted not only a culture, but a superhuman power. Right? A superhuman state of expression that is like, it's reverent and it's lived generationally. It's planted a profound seed. Planted a profound seed. Like created anchors of reality that are beyond comprehension. And I don't think we know sometimes when we're starting out on that path, the effect, the cascade that a code can have in our lives. I'm not sure that we're aware of all that is possible when we learn to teach, live, and engage in this way. But we've seen it behave as magic. We've seen it behave as magic throughout history. The way that magic delivers, real deep, comprehensive inner awakenings through symbology, through shapes, through ritual, through, different layers of engagement. So codes are extremely powerful. And what I want to share with you about this is that in the beginning stages of my business, I used codes as a primary form of teaching. So I taught through symbolism, I taught through images, and I would deliver an experiential, step-by-step way to engage in what that code activated in me so that I didn't impart my truth on somebody else's truth. On a soul level, I find this to be a very respectful exchange. The notion that I can share with you the keys of a code, the concept, the field of learning that you get to be a part of. I can deliver a symbol to you, and I can allow you to sit with it yourself, and then create your own definitions. And then I can ask you to sit with it daily. I can ask you to make it a part of your daily life. And then not only that, I can ask you to reflect. I can challenge you to reflect upon what it means for you day to day to sit with that awareness and unearth more of you as a result. And then I can ask you to take that information and embody it. I can ask you to embody it. I can ask you to tell me, what does this mean to you? Instead of teaching you something step by step by step linear. But codes and creation have a copacetic or co-creative relationship where they serve two very complementary and different aspects of ourselves. So I was talking with a client about this the other day, about how, we always know when we're taking ourselves on a soul journey that we're not sure how it's going to turn out. The same with manifestation or intention or setting a desire for a future version or vision of ourselves. We don't know how it's going to turn out. And if we want to be successful at getting there, we also understand that we need to let go of the really rigid internal steps, rules, milestones that we put on ourselves in order to decide if we're going to keep going. Because really, the idea of success in business or life is just a failure or success marker to let us know if we should keep stepping or if we should stop, right? It's not there to define our worth, although many people think that it is or get lost in the pursuit of that, which is, goes back to the story that I told in the beginning of this series. It's like when you set yourself up in that way, you never achieve fulfillment. In fact, you get to the end of the path that you laid out in front of you and you ask yourself, wait, how did I end up here? Until you just can't do that anymore. So living from a code means that you have an internal character, a code by which you live by. Similar to the example I gave about samurai, there is a series or a set of integral, internal rules that you agree to or you create for yourself to give you the backbone, to give you the stability in order to keep moving along that path so that your identity knows who it is and what it is in relationship to that journey. And then you have the mystery and the essence. You have the living field of reality, of life that's mirroring back to you or talking with you more accurately about the who that you are, right? The identity and the behavior that you chose to activate through living by this code. And when it comes to the logic of living by a code, as I mentioned, it is not linear, it is associative, right? So again, we connect through resonance, not step-by-step cause and effect. What does this serve? Well, it serves us deeply in our ability to continue to move forward and create trust without proof, right? So we just get to the place where we know. Why do we know? Because we know who we are. Logic can't follow the track. We already know that. But the body and soul understands it. And that is very well executed and achieved through symbolism and codes. Where you'll get tripped up is where you give it more meaning than you should. And you are creating meaning in your life from a reactive perspective. So if you haven't seen my workshop on the synchronistic field, you should watch that, because that workshop is absolutely mind-blowing and will completely shift the way that you see your relationship to reality, the way that you see your relationship to passive versus active states of reality creation. And this conversation is very much in line with that energetic truth. When you learn to activate a code or a dream code in your business, time and space have the potential to collapse because you are the one who is living on multiple dimensions of self now. You're living and creating from the past, from the present, from the avatar, right? From the expansion, from the limitation. It's triggering aspects of you that you didn't know were laying dormant inside because you hadn't fully stepped out of a linear mind matrix to live by an energetic code. And living through a dream state or being committed to living from a dream code becomes an emotionally vivid landscape. So what you feel when you're connected into essence, what you feel through art and creativity, ends up being more true than the parts of you that start to tell a diminishing narrative over time as you keep moving forward in trust without proof, because, the part of us that protects us doesn't feel necessarily safe in that motion, right? This is why we're always trying to make the associations. It's why we're trying to interpret. That comes from a place of safety. The needing to know comes from a place of requiring safety, which the nervous system requires in order to feel settled, in order to open up for more. So it really is this beautiful, it's a dance, right? We cannot have one without the other. We need to stop trying to, be a thing without being a whole thing, right? That's really, really important and powerful. So I want to invite you into a little practice today to identify 2 symbols that are connected to your dream code. So now we're thinking in life with dream logic instead of linear logic, but we have structure and systems to support us. So this practice is going to give you a really powerful anchor. And after we do this, I'll tell you what to do with it, because that's a very important part as well. So I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes for a moment. Take a breath, and you're going to see a looking glass appear before you. This is a beautiful, gilded, golden, floor-length mirror, and you're just going to stand up and walk through the mirror. Walk through the looking glass. And on the other side of this mirror, in this alternate yet here dimension, you're going to see a vision of your dream business avatar. This is the fullest expression of your soul's potential in line with your desire to create and serve here. And as you see that, the character, the definition of this avatar becomes clear. And then I want you to see this avatar giving you 2 gifts, 2 symbols. And you're going to see them right away. You're going to know exactly what they are. It doesn't matter if they make sense to you. You're just going to see them and take them. Say thank you for them and bring them back into this space. So let's talk about the symbols that you received, the purpose that they serve. You're going to find that there is a polarity in these 2 symbols. There's a dance in these 2 symbols. There's a relationship in these 2 symbols or objects that hold the key to unlocking a dream code in your life. And so it's your job to define what they mean to you. But I know that you already know exactly what they mean. You already know. It has to do with your tone. It has to do with your inner magic. It has to do with your purest, truest gifts. And instead of trying to let them answer a question for you, what does this mean? How do I use this? What is it? Let it serve you in your knowing. So sit in your body to know, and the answers will come to you immediately. You're going to know exactly what these mean. So these symbols serve as anchors to see, to check in moments if you find yourself assimilating to somebody else's definition of you or who you should be in business. I want to make sure that I explain how important this is. So, when you are living from the dream code, when you are living the dream code, when you are a dream walker, when you are committed to this in your life, you are 100% fully and uniquely you. That is what magnetizes. That is what creates the energetic funnel. That is what attracts your clients. That is what gets your energy in a regenerative state when it is 100% you. And so often in business, we get ourselves into spaces where we're looking at what everybody else does in order to see what we should do. We're using the spark and inspiration of what other people are doing to inspire our own. And if we don't have a check-in, if we don't have an anchor, if we don't have a dream code to come back to, sometimes we end up off path, just like I shared in my day one story, where I am going down a road and I don't know how I ended up here. I don't know how I got there. There is a truth in you that is so ancient, so wise, so wild, so fully you. And instead of searching for symbols to show us, to unlock doors, to lead us into spaces that we are meant to do or meant to be, instead of using symbols to lead us into spaces that we are meant to be, we need to learn how to be in the space where the symbols we receive are being used to be more of us. Okay? So when I first saw the dream code that I'm going to share with you, that is mine, it has never changed for me over the years. There have been so many times that I have searched spiritually, symbolically, energetically, through a fog of self-created confusion. I have to say this. I know it's not what you want to hear, but always, all the time, so often, and I see this over and over and over again with clients, the places where they get confused is where they're creating the confusion. They're avoiding taking a step towards the part of themselves or the aspect of themselves that is unseen because they just don't want to see it. Typically, what we're holding on to when we're doing this is an aspect of our own survival mechanisms that is holding itself so close, so protected, in order to not make the same mistakes again. So you can see, as I spoke about this in the second day of Dream Business, when I'm talking about how that heart-centered space, like being fully heart-expressed, doesn't look for you like it looks for somebody else. And it doesn't have to. But there is a small, preserved child in there that's attempting to shine bright. And until you fully see her as unique or him as unique and whole and correct in your life, you end up creating these scenarios where perhaps you turn away from a career that did not fulfill you, a way that you were living your life, a relationship, a mode of being that you're like, I never again. I do not want to be this person anymore. I have to do something different. So I'm going to make that pivot. I'm going to do the soul pivot. And then you do the soul pivot, and you don't move forward building the skills that allow you to open up and release so that you can like get into harmony with what you desire, not continue to create from hustle. So this can look like saying to yourself, I never want to hustle again, so I refuse to push myself in any way in my business. I'm not going to do anything that doesn't feel aligned. Well, what does that even mean? Do you know what that even means? Does that mean that forcing yourself perhaps to show up online and market and sell a business that you say you desire means that you're hustling? I don't think that doing what it takes in connection to what we say that we want, what we dream of, is actually hustle. I think we get into harmony when we create with our own inner rhythm and we have the opportunity to get good at something because we have been a part of it for long enough to see the results. I think that we get into a rhythm when we start being the rhythm, right? And so there's all these tricky ways that our survival mechanisms try and hang us up. They try to block us. They tell us that, no, I'm not doing that again to protect myself. But the reality is that we're really just ignoring taking the steps that we need to take as a new version of ourselves, knowing that we've got on our own back and we're willing to be a part of our dreams. We're willing to stand up for our dreams and we're willing to do what it takes. So I want to invite you to make a commitment today as part of being here in this event, or if you're watching down the road, if you're watching this when it's not live, I want to invite you to make a commitment to living through the expression of your dream code. Okay? To define what a dream code is for you, to connect to these anchors, and to really look at yourself in moments when you find yourself perhaps assimilating to a version of you that is not you, to come back to that center point. Because when you do that, when you don't do that, when you don't trust yourself, when you don't take risks, when you don't keep moving forward, that little that magic in your heart starts to distrust in you. It starts to kind of empty out the potency, right? And we really want to feel the full potency of our magic. And so practically what my invitation is to share your journey with others and define those two anchors, those two symbols, those two gifts. So I'll just share with you very quickly before I hop off what I see, what I have always seen. It hasn't changed, is the sword and the watchmaker. So what I see, the gifts that I was given was a sword and a timepiece. Okay, but it's more about the gears in the timepiece that have the symbology for me. And so what does it mean? What does it mean? Well, I know what it means. I know what it means. If I ask what it means through a lens of confusion, well, then I'm not quite sure. But in my soul's truth, the sword for me means the one who releases and speaks with clarity. Okay, so there is a sharpness that is joyful in my life because it cuts through what is not me to allow me to be more myself. And the timepiece, the symbol of that for me, really means the clicking in of the reality that is connected to my dream that allows me to be in that place of heart-filled awe, wonder, excitement, and joy for creation. And I can tell you that in my truest state, creating is what gives me pure joy. And the part of me that has created from survival and from lack and from limitation is the one who abandons the sword. The one who feels guilty for the sword. The one who is always holding back and not trusting in her samurai self. You know? The one who hasn't taken those truths yet and turned it into a revolution of the self, of a culture of self, of a fullness, a way of living, a religion of self, a devotion, a commitment, a way of life, an embodied practice. So I invite you to be a part of this, and this is so powerful. This dream code for you will absolutely change your life and your business, but it requires you to do the work to be a part of it. And it doesn't have to be complicated, but it has to be intentional and it has to be present. You have to be present with it. So I hope you really enjoyed this workshop, and I'm looking forward to seeing you back in here for one more. I've got a little bonus session, and I want to share with you that the code work for me over the years is my purest, truest starting point. It's the point if I ever get lost and I come back to, I remember, this is me, this is who I am. And so there is something in the world that is that for you. And I invite you to find your own thing and to live from that and fully expand in the joy and pleasure of what it feels like to see yourself and to have others see you in your magic. Okay, bye.